Good morning. And what a beautiful morning it is. Welcome to Kitsap Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. Whoever you are and wherever you come from, for this hour, we here are one gathered congregation and all are welcome. I invite you to follow along in the order of service. For those of you attending virtually, all the links for this service, including the order of service, are on our website and in this morning's worship service email. If you are here in the sanctuary this morning, please silence your cell phones. My name is Lenny Barone. I've been a member of KUUF for 8 years now. During that time, I've served on the Committee on Shared Ministry, the Ministerial Search Committee, and I've also been a longtime member of a Chalice Circle and Neighborhood Group, which both I love. And in case you haven't noticed, I'm leading today's service in a snazzy fedora hat. And that's because I have a fashion quote that I live by. And that quote is, "There's no such thing as being overdressed, you're just underestimated." Okay? Our worship leader this morning is Joseph Bednarik, the co-publisher of the multiple Pulitzer Prize-winning poetry publishing company, Copper Canyon Press. Joseph is a beloved speaker here at KUUF, enriching our worship service about once a month. Welcome, Joseph. I'd like to welcome any visitors. We look forward to welcoming everyone at our coffee hour outside after the service. The announcements are available on our website, www.kuuf.org, or on our weekly email newsletter, The Candle. We acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the Aboriginal territory of the Suquamish people. Expert fishermen, canoe builders, and basket weavers, the Suquamish have lived in harmony with the lands and waterways along Washington's Central Salish Sea for thousands of years. Here, the Suquamish live and protect the land and waters of their ancestors for future generations, as promised by the Point Elliott Treaty of 1855. Please enjoy this musical call to worship, Alleluia Sang Stars, performed by Brian Kinney, Alina Hemingway, and Mike Menifee. Our opening words were written by Gretel Ehrlich. They are, "Everything in nature invites us to constantly be what we are." Ain't that the truth? Today, Genevieve Gilson, Eric Bauer, and their son Caspian will light our chalice. They recently began attending KUUF, and we thank them for being part of our worship service. Join us now in lighting our chalice. If you have a chalice or candle at home, please light it as I read our chalice lighting words from poet Theodore Rothke. "Deep in their roots, all flowers keep the light." Please join me in our spoken affirmation. The words will appear on the screen. We gather as a caring community seeking life's deeper meanings. We value diversity and affirm the worth of all living things. We strive to speak truth in love, to act for justice, to grow in spirit, and to care for the earth. We celebrate with open hearts and minds the creative power that sustains and transforms us. Melinda Hughes, our Director of Religious Exploration, is on vacation, so Kathleen Stewart will share our story, our time for all ages.
It's been 2.5 years since I've sat in this spot. That's the before times. And while I don't have puppets or protest signs or funny hats today, I do have a lovely, gentle, sweet book selected by Melinda. It's Silence by Limna Scotties, and I have no idea if that's really how the name's pronounced. I made that up. Silence. In the silence, I can hear the waves crashing and the wind playing with my kite. At night, I can hear what the stars tell me. And in the morning, what the birds say. When I listen, I can hear my feet when dancing, my heart when running, my legs when swimming, and my breath when still. In spring, I can hear bees loving flowers. In summer, trees chattering. In fall, leaves tumbling. In winter, snow twinkling. Be still, listen. How many things can you hear?
Mal is teaching the class while Melinda is out today. So please join in singing Mal and the children out as they make their way to the Matin building for their religious exploration class. Please remain standing for our next hymn, For the Beauty of the Earth, which is number 21 in our gray hymnal, Singing the Living Tradition. The lyrics will also appear on the screen. I invite you all to sing along.
For
Now is the time for our morning offering. If your offering is for KUUF, please put it in the envelopes in the baskets. Loose change, cash, or checks placed in the basket will go to this month's recipient of our charitable giving, Bremerton Backpack Brigade. If you would like to donate electronically, please use the PayPal link in this morning's email on our website or the QR code on the bottom of our order of service. If this is your first time at KUUF, you are our guest. There is no need to contribute. During the offering, we'll enjoy the pianist's gift of music, The Poet Speaks by Robert Schumann. Thank you, Brian. Now is the time for our joys and sorrows. Though we are physically distanced from one another, our hearts and our spirits remain connected. When shared together, our joys are amplified and our sorrows lessened. We have a sorrow from Robin Singh. My sorrow is for my elder cousin who lost everything in a fire Friday night, including her kitties and most of her and her roommate's life work. But we're very thankful that her disabled roommate was rescued just in time. Oh my gosh. We have another sorrow. It's from Marcy Mathis. I have a 13-month-old grandnephew who has been on life support all week and is not going to survive. Such a tragedy. Please keep my family in your thoughts and in prayers. We have a joy from Liz Roberts. For the new year, for those of us who dedicate our lives to education, the end of summer announces the new school year. We have a joy from Rowan Braybrook. The joy is that my cousin and his family are visiting from Italy. My aunt and uncle can finally read to their young grandkids in person for the first time since before the pandemic. We have another joy, and it's from me, Lenny, and it's the joy of gratefulness. And the reason I'm grateful is because my dad, Marty, chose to miss attending his own church this morning to be here with us at our fellowship to see me lay lead. Dad. And we light one last candle for those joys and sorrows which are too tender to share. Please join me in a moment of prayer or intention in the spirit of community in which we find strength and common purpose. We share our joys, our sorrows, our hopes, and dreams. We have turned our minds and hearts toward one another in trust, giving love, seeking comfort, and celebrating together. We are part of the web of life that makes us one with all humanity, one with all the universe. In all the moments of our lives, for those loved ones and events shared this morning, and for those we yet hold in the silence of our hearts, we are truly grateful for the love and support of this beloved community. May the spirit of life and love bring peace to us all. Amen, and blessed be. Now we will sing Spirit of Life, hymn number 123 in our gray hymnal. For those at home, the words will appear on your screen. Please remain seated. And now Joseph Bednarik.
Good morning, everyone. I first want to thank Lenny for demonstrating an incredible amount of bravery during a very intense joys and sorrows. To be able to stay with and be with the depths of sorrow and the heights of joy is a very incredible thing. So thank you, Lenny, for that. And also, I would just like to say, joys and sorrows is one of the most intense, can be one of the most intense parts of a worship service. You never know what's going to come forward. And what did we hear? We heard of a fire that destroyed people's possessions, but they didn't take their lives. So what they do is they get to reflect on what's truly valuable. You know, what did we hear? We heard of a young person, 13 months old, who won't live much longer. That's intense, you know. Let's be happy for the time that we have. And my guess is that person delivered so much love into the world, and that's going to be their great gift for the rest of their life and for the rest of the lives of everyone who knew that little person. And I also want to say that there's another joy that remained unspoken is the young person who lit our chalice this morning. Caspian lost a tooth this morning. And he told me all about it when he met me on the porch. So we had a nice conversation about the power of your tongue, moving around your mouth and feeling that weird hole and everything. And his tooth kind of went back and then to the side and then out. So thank you, Caspian. And this morning, I'm going to bring forward a simple sentence for the reading. Just one sentence from an amazing book called Leap, from an amazing writer called Terry Tempest Williams, a woman who has incredible depth, deep heart, a big brain, and is fearless. No, she's not fearless, she's courageous. She has fear. She just meets it and moves in. Terry Tempest Williams writes in her book Leap, faith is not about finding meaning in the world. There may be no such thing. Faith is the belief in our capacity to create meaningful lives. And so let's reflect on Terry Tempest Williams' words for a time of meditation.
O brother, sun, you bring us light, all shining round in fiery might. O sister moon, you heal and bless, your beauty shines in tenderness. O brother, when you sweep the hills, your mighty breath both freshens and fills. O sister water, you cleanse and flow through rivers and streams in ice and snow. O brother, when you sweep the hills, your mighty breath both freshens and fills. O sister water, you cleanse and flow through rivers and streams in ice and snow. O brother fire, you warm our night with all your dancing colored light. O sister earth, you feed all things, all birds, all creatures, all scales and wings. O sister death, you meet us here and take us to our God so near. O sister death, you meet us here and take us to our God so near. O God of life, we give you praise for all your creatures, for all your ways.
I don't know about you, but I am so happy to be here this morning. To actually be here, this is fantastic. And welcome Zoom folks as well. So it was absolutely wonderful this morning to make this short trip to Bremerton. I always give a little prayer on my way to the Hood Canal Bridge. It was open, so rah rah. Got to make it here on time. This Sunday morning's jaunt was a little bit emotional because it's essentially the last little road trip I'll have before summer comes to an end. And I recently returned from some summer travels on the East Coast, where I rode in planes, trains, boats, subways, and cars, which brought me to airports and train stations and church services and restaurants and hotels and a minor league baseball game. Happy to talk about the Jamestown Tarp Skunks at coffee hour. I know, the minor leagues have great names for baseball teams now. Also attended an outdoor circus, a high school reunion, and museums, including the National Comedy Center, which I highly recommend. And I can report that I was always, as in always, in the minority of those people wearing a mask, which is to say, thank you very much, everyone, for reading the sign on the way in, please wear your mask, which is all to say that we are still all currently within a global pandemic, and we're all trying to figure out what to do. And that pandemic is both intensely personal and incredibly public. And that if this pandemic has proved anything, that we are all incredibly interconnected on a very small planet where a microscopic virus spread from one teensy-weensy dot on the globe to the entire globe within a very short period of time. And with such interconnection in mind, let's bring our attention to the seventh principle of Unitarian Universalism, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. And not apart like we're apart from it, but apart as we're a part of it. Which I think is a weird thing about that principle. The editor and me on that principle would have wanted to have a new word, because hearing it for me sometimes is weird. That's why I want to be very clear. You're not apart from the interconnected web. You are actually in part of it. And it's important to note the difference between interconnected and interdependent. And our principle consciously uses the word interdependent, clearly stating that beyond simply being connected to each other, which is pretty obvious, we are mutually and inextricably dependent on each other. Interconnected is actually embedded within the word interdependent. So much for that illusory notion of self-sufficiency. For those of you who believe in self-sufficiency, you believe in a fiction. And the interdependence that we're all talking about moves beyond the human community and into the realm of all existence. Of our seven principles, the seventh one, that one's the guiding principle for the environmentalists among us who focus to find inspiration in this religion to be a positive and healthy force within existence, within all existence. Now, it stands to reason if they were all connected through an interdependent web, positive and healthy activities radiate positivity and health throughout the web, as do, alas, the negative and detrimental activities. Now, the seventh principle also suggests that we could, with a bit of imagination, recognize that the web of all existence contains a birch tree in Finland, a butterfly in Chile, as well as an empty potato chip bag kind of blowing around the parking lot at Graceland, Tennessee. And notice what we just did there. We took a big, flossy concept, like the interdependent web of all existence, and we applied some specifics, thereby creating this thought project that our religion constantly calls us to do, of connecting across continents seemingly disparate items, disparate nouns, a birch tree, a butterfly, an empty potato chip bag, and we threw in a sparkling reference to Elvis Presley just for fun. So how on earth could all these things be interdependent? And just as we're gearing up to try to imagine these connections on our blue boat that we call home, which we'll sing about in a little bit, in comes an image that makes the quote-unquote all existence portion of the seventh principle all the more interesting. And this from a recent press release regarding the first images published from the latest scientific miracle, which is the James Webb Space Telescope. Some people are calling the JWST. Now, this telescope provided the deepest and sharpest infrared image of the distant universe ever produced. This is the all existence, guys. This press release is really important to Unitarian Universalists. Now, this image is filled with galaxies from some 13 billion years ago, which means that they formed just after the Big Bang. Now, the press release continues, quote, "Over the coming days, NASA will publish additional images which reveal details about the atmosphere of an exoplanet outside our solar system, stellar nurseries where stars are formed, galaxies that interact and trigger star formations in black holes, and a glimpse into how stars die." Now, you want to talk about respect for the interdependent web of all existence, of which we are a part. And so consider the stage set. While the JWST is traveling in space, broadcasting images of galaxies and stellar nurseries that make astrophysicists swoon, while the butterfly is floating in Chile, while this potato chip bag is scuttling along the asphalt in Graceland, I am traveling as a passenger in a very small car, driving toward a second growth forest, the first forest, alas, chopped down. This forest is near Middlebury, Vermont, and it's called Spirit in Nature, or SpIN for short. And the car is being driven by a practicing Druid. And I love that sentence so much, I'm going to repeat it. The car is being driven by a practicing Druid. You're welcome to go look up what a Druid does when you go home. Now, the mission statement for SpIN reads as follows. Spirit in Nature is a place of interconnecting paths where people of diverse spiritual traditions may walk, worship, meet, meditate, and promote education and action toward better stewardship of this sacred earth. Sounds intriguing. So we arrive, we park, we get our bearings by studying the map, which shows the river and the creek and a dozen paths represented by various blazed trails that wind among the trees and the ferns, the rocks and the creeks. These paths are representing, in alphabetical order, the religions of Bahai, Buddhist, Christian, Druid, Friends, aka the Quakers, the Hindu faith, interfaith, Jewish, Muslim, Native American, pagan, and, drumroll, Unitarian Universalist. Now, for a practicing UU, this came as a pleasant surprise, as Unitarian Universalism usually doesn't get much public airtime, right? Other than those snide Garrison Keillor jokes on Prairie Home Companion from years ago. Now, along each specific path, bungee corded to the trees, were these laminated placards with quotes that represent or resonate with each religion. There's also a children's trail, a sacred circle, a wetland, a beaver pond, and what made my heart absolutely sing, a labyrinth. And if there's a labyrinth in and around Bremerton, please catch me at coffee hour. I really want to find out whether there's one around here. Get out. I heard there's one. Well, there's a late arriving memo. I would like to find where that is afterwards. The idea for the site of Spirit in Nature came about after a 4-day conference at Middlebury College in 1990 called Spirit and Nature, where, quote, voices from the world's major religions addressed our responsibilities to the environment, the challenges of preserving it, and how to foster greater understanding of spirit and nature. PBS's star, Bill Moyers, produced a 90-minute documentary about the conference, and the opening shot of that film is of the Dalai Lama in his maroon and yellow robes, shoveling soil onto the root ball of a tree that's being planted. The shot then shows other religious leaders in garments that are particular to their tradition, adding more soil to the fresh planting. Now, there's something inspiring about watching spiritual leaders shovel dirt onto the root ball of a tree, because trees, they're the lungs of the earth. They are essential to the salvation of this planet. And it makes perfect symbolic sense that religious leaders would plant a tree together to help the earth create oxygen, to breathe, to literally and figuratively provide the thing that we need to inspire, right? To inspirit. And the next time that I visit Middlebury, I would like to see whether that specific tree continues to make oxygen, whether it is in fact still standing. Because that's the amazing thing, right? We've all been a part of the tree planting ceremony at some point in our life, and then years later we go back and visit to see whether the tree is still there. And before we continue, a very small footnote. The conference at the college was called Spirit and Nature, while the trail system that I was visiting in the forest is called Spirit in Nature. And I think the difference between and in is notable. And connects two separate, distinct entities, while in suggests entrance, and in suggests immersion. And I'd like to point out that one of my favorite surrealist poets, one of my mentors, a man who was a brilliant poet, playwright, and a painter, whenever he saw an entrance sign, he would always pronounce the word entrance. And you're welcome to carry on that tradition. And so there we were, at Spirit in Nature, with our host, a practicing Druid, who led us on a beautiful summer day to the beginning of the Unitarian Universalist path, which was marked by blue blazes on the trees. Now, I decided to allow the path to entrance me. I tried to come in as a neutral party, right? Even though I'm a practicing Unitarian Universalist, I came in as a neutral person. Okay, what's this path going to do? And so, along with being present in the forest, I decided to read all the words that were presented to me. In total, I discovered 6 quotes on the UU path, and I'd like to share them with you this morning. They're short. So if you would, imagine yourself moving along a forest path in Vermont. The forest floor is cushioned by a thick carpet of pine needles. The bright summer sunshine is filtering through this green canopy. The light is literally green. In short, it is a glorious day, gorgeous spot, every reason to start along the path with a buoyant and open heart. And as someone who loves poetry, and the powerful tools of poetic language, you'll note that most of my readings during my services are about a sentence or two long. It's because I believe there's a lot of power in the well-written sentence. And anyway, I was encouraged by that first UU sign along this path. Metaphors be with you. And now to make sure that we all get the joke, this is a playful homonym with the famous phrase from the Star Wars movie, "May the Force be with you." Metaphors be with you. Because I like to think of metaphors as this capital F, force. And I was doubly encouraged that the word metaphors was spelled incorrectly on the sign. So, deep bow to human fallibility. The second sign presented lyrics from 3 verses of hymn number 21, which we sang just a few minutes ago, "For the Beauty of the Earth." And as I read the lyrics, to be honest with you, the words just kind of blurred, right? I really didn't get the brain meaning of reading these lyrics, but rather the tune of the hymn came to mind. The music rose in me because I've heard that music scores and scores and scores of times within UU sanctuaries. You know, so as I continued to walk along the path, the music for this hymn kept coming up. And since I couldn't remember the lyrics exactly, I just started making up my own words. And so I want to share that with you. So it's "For the beauty of the earth and that big space telescope, our universe in all its girth tells us not to act the dope. Source of all, to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise." And so this is what can happen when you don't remember the lyrics. The third sign that presented a warning from journalist and Unitarian minister Pierre van Passen, quote, "Half our misery and weakness comes from the fact that we have broken with the soil, and we have allowed the roots that bound us to the earth to rot. We have become detached from the earth, we have abandoned her, and when we abandon nature, we have begun to abandon ourselves." Now, I took special note of the communal human responsibility in that quote. We have broken with the soil. We have allowed the rots to root. We have become detached. We have abandoned her. And since Van Passen died in 1968, these words were written well before the profound acceleration of climate change that we're all beginning to experience. Now, what I respond to in this quote is the agency, right? The implied call to radically change these behaviors. Essentially, it's a bow to the seventh principle and the recognition that we're all connected through that interdependent web, and that positive and healthy activities radiate positivity and health within and throughout the web. Now, fourth along the path was a poem by the Northwest poet David Wagner, who lived nearby, and the poet is called Lost. Lost by David Wagner. Stand still. The trees ahead and the bushes beside you are not lost. Wherever you are is called here, and you must treat it as a powerful stranger, must ask permission to know it and be known. The forest breathes. Listen. It answers, I have made this place around you. If you leave it, you may come back again, saying, here. No two trees are alike to raven. No two branches are the same to wren. If what a tree or a bush does is lost on you, you are surely lost. Stand still. The forest knows where you are. You must let it find you. Fifth was a short and pithy quote from architect Frank Lloyd Wright, quote, "I believe in God, only I spell it Nature." No, I think even the hardcore atheists among us could nod yes to that statement. Sixth was a short excerpt from May Sarton's long poem called The Invocation to Kali. Kali being that fierce blue-skinned four-armed Hindu deity who's considered to be the goddess of ultimate power, time, and change. And as a bit of intense imagery, she's usually depicted holding the hair of a severed male head. Thank you, Kali. And here's the excerpt. "Help us to be the always hopeful gardeners of the Spirit who know that without darkness, nothing comes to birth, as without light, nothing flowers." And echo back to Lenny's opening words of the poet Theodore Roethke about flowers holding light in their roots. Now, I love the idea of us always being hopeful gardeners of the Spirit who recognize the totality of light and dark. Now, the lesson here is that darkness is with us, is essential to the process of birth and death, and we ignore darkness at our peril. Now, reading this excerpt, I was reminded of the aphorism by Witold Gombrowicz that, quote, "Anyone who loves only the beautiful and the pure loves barely half of life." And the final sign was the 7 principles, which you were invited to read at your own pace and at your own time, sometime this beautiful Sunday morning. I'm sure there's wallet cards around here if you don't have one, or pamphlets out there on the wall. You can read the 7 principles. You can read them forward and back and backward and forward. You could find your favorite and have a lot of fun. Now, after completing the path, we walked a portion of the Druid path in honor of our host, and we also walked a portion of the Buddhist path. We walked the labyrinth, and we even made a small labyrinth repair. It was very fun because we were all walking the labyrinth, and we all sort of stacked up trying to figure out where we went. And it was just hilarious because the Druid and the young person among us started kind of really figuring it out, and they made some stone changes so then we could all start moving along again. At one point, I had the great good fortune of standing on a very small bridge over a creek, closing my eyes and allowing the sound of the creek to flow through my brain. I don't know if you've ever done that, but man, that is a blast. I love doing that. And truth be told, I preferred that sound of the creek flowing through my mind than any of the words that I read on the UU path. And that is not a criticism at all. That is only an observation, because when I'm in the forest, I wish to be entranced by the forest and not pulled into my brain by human language. Now, that said, our host mentioned that the Unitarian Universalists were in the process of reconsidering their quotes, and true to form, a quotes committee had been formed and was busy at work on the project. And somehow I found deep comfort in this, right? And while not invited to do so, the editor in me wants to submit the following suggestions to the committee. 1, it is essential that all written messages are easy to understand, that they are inspirational, and or they are provocative in their own way, and they're contained within a few dozen words. 2, 7 signs seems about right, including the list of UU principles as the final sign. 3, it would be wonderful if each sign were presented in multiple languages, including scripts and alphabets that look radically different than English or French or Spanish. Thinking about Russian, Arabic, Chinese, Korean, Tibetan, Hindi, Japanese, Hebrew, etc. This will remind readers that their brain, their English language thinking brain, is not the only language on the planet. The planet is actually teeming with languages, teeming with ideas, and in fact, languages other than yours create ideas that you have never thunk. All signs should include Braille. 5, be intentional about including quotes from artists and thinkers, poets and scientists who represent the diversity of people. 6, I would advise against including lyrics from hymns, as lyrics without the accompanying music almost always fall short, except Bob Dylan. 7, include one sign, preferably a bold woodblock print that is simply a picture of a UU chalice, and do not include explanatory words. We do too much talking, right? Too many words, says the talker. And because the UU SpIN Quotes Committee didn't ask me, I'm going to take this opportunity to conclude the sermon by freely offering 6 quotes for their consideration. The opening quote, I know, it's hilarious, right? This is so perfect. Hey, you didn't ask for this, but here. The opening quote should be from science fiction writer Octavia Butler. Quote, "The universe is God's self-portrait." Love that. Down the trail, a person would find this line from the poet Jim Harrison, near and dear to my heart. "The earth's proper scripture could be written on a 3x5 card." In a nod to the inspirational founding of SpIN, I would add the profound Dalai Lama realization, quote, "My religion is very simple. My religion is kindness." The word kindness can fit multiple times on a 3x5 card. The middle sign should be the aforementioned woodblock print of the UU chalice. And then Helen Keller's amazing, positive activism. Quote, "I long to accomplish a great and noble task, but it is my chief duty to accomplish small tasks as if they were great and noble." And as I end every service, I would love to see Antonio Machado's poem as the benediction to the UU path of spirit in nature. Beyond living and dreaming, what matters most is waking up. Amen. One of the fantastic things about being together in this room that we get to co-create as sanctuary. Sanctuary is both a noun and a verb. We are providing sanctuary for one another. Within this sanctuary, we get to sing using our beautiful voices while we are still alive and kicking. So we get to sing closing hymn number 1064, Blue Boat Home. As I understand, it is going to be presented as a video. Is that correct? Yeah. And we can sing aloud and sing along and sing like you mean it.
Sea,
beautiful video. Thank you. Our closing words this morning, you've heard them just moments ago. A beautiful little poem by Antonio Machado, and if you know it, please sing along. Beyond living and dreaming, what matters most is waking up. And now we get to extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment, or the power of transformation. These we get to carry in our hearts until we're together again. And before we go off to coffee and we get to listen to Brian, his concluding music, on this beautiful summer day, with the intensity of the joys and sorrows that we heard this morning, and with all of us helping co-create Sanctuary, I encourage you at some point today to tell someone who's not your usual partner that you love them, to help radiate that out into our interdependent web. Thanks.